criticise very strongly the reaction of the Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, to Deputy Joan Collins's leaders this morning. It was quite shocking, actually, what he responded by saying, and that was that the question of a referendum on water doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the Irish people. It doesn't have any impact on our lives. It doesn't matter. It's neither here nor there. It's an academic question. It doesn't bother any of us. And the other referenda that he wants to table on blasphemy, etc., does bother us and does have an impact on our lives. This is a disgraceful remark, because we have been through 3 years between 2014 and 2017, effectively, where the biggest response in the history of the state of a people's movement was seen to an issue that governments tried to impose on those people. And that response included many communities being treated and manhandled very badly, not scenes reminiscent of Barcelona or Catalonia, but certainly very serious scenes of abuse and violence by Gardaí in working class estates on the north side, where people were blocking meters. Some of that resulted in people going to prison. Some of it resulted in many residents having to sacrifice a lot of their ordinary lives to get up early in the morning, to mobilise on their streets in the freezing cold and all sorts of weather. People in areas like Clondalkin, Drimna, Donnycarney, Coolock, Finglas, Dunleary, all over the place, and indeed places I'm not so familiar with, like Toker and Ballyfahan, etc. in Cork, mobilised and organised to stop metering and to protest. And then furthermore, they mobilised and organised on a state and road by road basis to ensure that every member of the community was aware of the issues to do with water charges, that every member of the community understood why it was necessary to mount a campaign of resistance that included non-payment. And one of the major reasons that ran through the theme of that opposition was to prevent the privatisation of our most precious resource. Now, in 2014, in the early part of that year, I organised a conference with my union, Unite, to look at the question of the commodification of water. And we had a woman over from Bolivia called Marcela Oliveira. Marcela's brother had led a campaign to stop the privatisation of the water there by Bechtel and by Suez and by other major multinationals who had moved in to gobble up a precious commodity of a people that were already impoverished and excluded. And thankfully, their campaign in Bolivia resulted in preventing the privatisation of water. It also resulted, however, very tragically, in major riots and the deaths of 3 of its citizens. And Marcela Oliveira, when she came to Dublin, explained this very carefully. We also had people from Paris, from Hamburg, from Munich, who were all ordinary citizens campaigning for the remunicipalisation of their precious commodity of water. And so, in different parts of the world, including the developed world of Europe, there's resistance to the privatisation of water, and this was a key feature for people who marched, who refused to pay, who organised in their communities, an awareness that once you put a price on a commodity and an essential service, then that commodity and essential service becomes subject to the rigours of the market, is open for competition, it's open to be bought and sold, it's open to be used and abused by giant multinational corporations who make extraordinary profit out of the very fundamentals of life. And water is a fundamental of life. Extraordinary insult how he responded to Deputy Collins this morning, and therefore to the population at large. People should check it out. His response was nothing but class snobbery and disdainful towards the population in this country, who successfully, actually, like the people of Bolivia, have prevented the privatisation of water. But therefore, and it's obvious, and I'm going to make the point further on, that what's been attempted here is to keep water charges open for the future, not just by the back door, but by the front door, by the windows, by the skylight, by whatever means necessary. The question of the sell-off and the commodification of our water is being left open by this government. And that is why we need a better response from the Taoiseach to the need for a referendum. The bill has gone through second stage, and as Deputy Collins said, they would like to leave it there to rot and die and wither away, rather than deal with this very, very fundamental and crucial issue. And I would argue it absolutely does matter to the people, and it will make a difference to their lives if it was enshrined in our constitution that our water could never, ever be privatised. But I do want to start by responding